Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for your quick update on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today in the Workplace Minute, we are concluding our three-part series about the ethics of using artificial intelligence in decisions that affect people's work and livelihoods. In our first episode, we examined AI in hiring and selection. And in our second, we looked at AI in performance, compensation, promotion, and succession decisions. And today we move to perhaps the largest question of the series. How should organizations use AI when deciding what work people will perform, which jobs will change, and how many workers the organization will need? Now, it's not surprising that artificial intelligence is becoming an increasingly important part of workforce planning. Organizations can use AI to forecast staffing needs, identify emerging skills gaps, analyze people's workloads, redesign jobs, automate tasks, and model different combinations of employees, contractors, technologies, and even AI agents. And leaders can ask how many people they will need in the future, which roles may be difficult to fill, where productivity can improve, and which activities could or should be performed by AI instead of by people. These AI capabilities can help organizations to plan more effectively. AI can reveal repetitive work that employees would gladly give up. It can help organizations address labor shortages, reduce administrative loads, improve safety, and give people more time for judgment, creativity, building relationships, and problem solving. The ethical challenges arise when organizations move from asking how AI can improve work and jobs to asking how many people can AI replace. Now that framing turns workforce planning into a contest between technology and labor. And it also oversimplifies how work is usually performed. A job is rarely just one task, right? Most jobs are collections of activities, decisions, responsibilities, interactions, and relationships. And AI may perform some of those tasks extremely well. It may be able to assist with others, and it may be very poorly suited to several of those most important ones. So an AI system might write a report draft, but a person would still need to determine whether its conclusions make sense. An AI agent may resolve a routine customer inquiry, but a person would be needed if the situation becomes emotional, unusual, or extremely consequential. The AI may generate a workforce forecast, but the leaders have to decide what is the future we're willing to create from that forecast. So this distinction between tasks and entire jobs is really critical. If an AI tool can automate, say, 30% of the tasks in a role, that doesn't automatically mean the organization needs 30% fewer people in that role. The additional capacity could be used to improve service, reach more customers, reduce employee burnout, maybe create new products, or adjust the work that the organization continually postpones. Headcount reduction is one possible choice, but it's not the inevitable conclusion produced by AI technology. So the organization must ask the question, what are we choosing to optimize? The workforce model can optimize for labor cost, for margins, for speed, for quality of service, for innovation, for resilience, for employee workload, for customer experience, or almost endless combinations of all those variables. Different objectives will produce different recommendations in different workforce plans. If the leaders tell the system to find the lowest workforce cost configuration, then it probably will recommend fewer employees, more automation, greater work intensity, and less overall organizational capacity. That recommendation might be mathematically sound according to the objective that the tool was given, but it doesn't make that objective responsible, complete, or even the correct one. A model can't determine how much the organization should place the value on things like employment stability, development, institutional knowledge, customer relationships, or the ability to respond when conditions change. Those are leadership judgments. So that's why organizations have to be careful when describing workforce reductions as decisions that were just made by AI. AI will estimate savings. It will identify automatable tasks. It will model new staffing scenarios. But it can't decide how productivity gains should be distributed. It doesn't decide whether or not affected employees should receive training, reassignment, severance, or simply time to transition out of the organization. And it doesn't decide whether a company should invest in its existing workforce or simply replace workers in search of a faster financial return. You just have to make those ethical choices. Claiming that AI made a workforce reduction unavoidable can become a way to distance human decision makers from the consequences of their decisions. We should always ask who receives the benefits and who carries the risks. Because when employees use AI to complete their work faster, the organization may gain additional capacity, lower costs, and maybe higher profits. Employees may receive better tools and maybe some relief from repetitive work, but they might also just get more work to do, maybe smaller teams, greater monitoring, or increased concern that demonstrating productivity will make their own roles less secure. And that can create a difficult problem for employees. Organizations want their employees to experiment with AI, to share what they've learned, document workflows, identify opportunities for automation. Yet employees may reasonably wonder whether helping the organization understand their work will eventually help the organization simply eliminate their jobs. As AI is further deployed in the organization, maintaining trust becomes essential. If workers believe that every efficiency gain will lead directly to headcount reduction, they're unlikely to approach AI adoption with openness. They may protect information, resist experimentation, or simply use AI quietly without sharing their better practices. Responsible AI adoption requires a credible answer to a question employees are already asking. What happens to me if this technology works? HR leaders need to be prepared to answer that question honestly. Now, that does not require promising that every job will remain unchanged. Roles have always evolved as technology, markets, customer expectations have changed. Some work will disappear, new work emerges, and many jobs will have to be redesigned. Responsibility means making those changes through a deliberate process that considers the impact on workers, along with the business case for the technology. And it also means involving employees in the redesign of the work. The people performing a job understand its exceptions, its relationships, its informal processes, and its hidden demands better than anyone examining it through just looking at data. They know which tasks create little value, which ones require their judgment, and sometimes where an apparently simple activity gets complicated. Employee participation can improve the quality of the AI implementation, and it recognizes that workers are stakeholders in decisions that may reshape their careers. Leaders who want to maintain trust and model ethical deployment of AI should ask several questions. Is the organization using AI primarily to lower labor costs and eliminate workers, or is it used to meaningfully improve workers' lives? Has it evaluated an entire job or an isolated collection of tasks that are easy to automate? Were employees involved in understanding and redesigning the new models of work? Does the workforce model consider things like resilience, culture, and institutional knowledge alongside immediate cost savings? And can leaders explain who will benefit from the productivity gains and how any risks will be shared? There may be legitimate circumstances in which AI reduces the need for certain roles, but responsible leadership doesn't require pretending that's otherwise. But it does require acknowledging that a financially advantageous decision can still impose significant costs on workers, families, and communities. Those consequences belong in the decision process, even when they don't appear in the workforce planning model. So what can HR leaders do now? First, HR leaders should begin with the work itself, not with immediate assumptions about jobs and headcount. Map the tasks and capabilities involved and then determine what AI can perform independently, what AI can support or maybe accelerate, where human judgment, relationships, and accountability remain essential, and what new work could become possible when capacity is created. In other words, treat automation potential as the starting point for thoughtful workforce redesign, not as an automatic recommendation for workforce reduction. Second, HR leaders should evaluate AI's impact using a broader definition of value, not labor savings alone. Efficiency matters, but it should be considered alongside other factors that shape the organization's long-term health and consequences, like quality of work, innovation and new capability creation, employee workload, their well-being and their capacity, organization's resilience, and finally, future readiness and adaptability. A model optimized around a narrow definition of efficiency will produce an equally narrow view of the organization's future. And third, before adopting AI at scale, organizations should define a clear workforce transition commitment. And this commitment should explain how employees will be involved, supported, and protected as work changes. You should think about how employees will participate in the redesign of work, how people will build the skills needed for new roles or changes to their roles, how internal movement and redeployment will be supported, and how the organization will respond to people when roles genuinely disappear. Employees deserve to understand the principles that will guide workforce decisions before those decisions impact them. Artificial intelligence gives organizations powerful new choices about work, but the most important choices remain human ones. Leaders can use AI to reduce drudgery, strengthen capability, and create new value, or to intensify work, shift risk to employees, and chase short-term savings. Across the series this week, the principle we've talked about has been the same. AI may inform employment decisions, but it can't carry the moral responsibility for them. The future of work will be shaped by AI, for sure, but the kind of future we create remains a human choice and a leadership responsibility. That's the Workplace Minute. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. A big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute, and be sure to subscribe to the HR Happy Hour Network on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3 HR Advisors.